Hello, happy Sunday. I hope you're having a good one. It's a pretty sobering weekend based on all the events we're hearing about. Nonetheless, we should be grateful. I wanted to provide you a prelude to what you're about to listen to. I was interviewed by an international organization called ThinkShift. They have a location here in the United States, in Australia, as well as in United Kingdom, and I believe in India as well. Anyway, the interview was actually in audio. So that's why I wanted to give you a brief synopsis of what it was about. It's about systemic racism, and I provided some feedback and some of my thoughts on the subject. I'd like to hear from you, so please provide me some feedback once you watch it. I'll appreciate it. Thank you, and have a blessed week. Bye bye.
All right. Thanks again. I mean, I don't know about some of you. Some of you are on all the time. Some of you are on joining for the first time. Uh, it's just such a nice, pleasant way to end the week. We seem to have found a balance between talking about things that are really important, but also um, trying to create a little bit of optimism and positivity towards the end of the week as best we can as well. And I think it's working quite well. And I've got to say, I'm super excited about today. Last week with Jennifer was brilliant. And then, Vicky was, I'm going to get Francesca on. She's going to be brilliant to follow up from Jennifer. And thankfully, Francesca said yes. So I think kind of without anything else from me, Vicky, I'm going to let you take it away, given you and Francesca know each other quite well. And then I'll try and stay quiet.
All right. That's great. Thank you, Vips. Well, yeah, Francesca, it's such an honor to have you with us today. Francesca shared with us last week at a conversation that I facilitated for some of the UCLA teams with the leaders. And what she shared moved me to tears. And after Jen's powerful conversation last week, I wanted Francesca to come on and share her journey as an executive, as a mother, and her views on what's really going on. Because I walked away with some practical insights, and Maureen and I were chatting afterwards, and we both walked away with the same insights that were powerful. And it's such a joy for us to have Francesca with us. So I'm not going to share too much about Francesca just yet. I'm first going to let her share her perspective, and then we'll weave in her background as we go through the conversation. So Francesca, welcome.
Thank you, Vicky. Actually, do me a favor. Can you just give me a quick thumbs up if you can hear me and see me very clearly? Okay. All right. Great. Okay, let me start first by excusing my dogs. I always want to do that, the setting where we're in right now. I have 4 of them, pretty big, and they run their own schedule. So you may hear them running their schedule. So please just pardon us before I get started. I'm very grateful to have this opportunity of sharing some of my personal experiences with you as it relates to discrimination and biases, particularly against Black people in our society. Vicky, let me start by thanking you for taking the bold and courageous step of inviting me onto this platform to speak on this subject. And to all of you, VIPs, and everybody else calling in from different parts of the world, some of you in opposite time zones, I want to thank you for your time today. I want to start by saying this is a very difficult subject for me, especially in a professional setting. Last week was my first time openly speaking about the issue of race. The night before, I casually mentioned it to my son that I was going to be speaking about this to a large number of people at different levels in the organization. At first, I thought maybe I should just go with the typical corporate message. We are an organization committed to diversity and inclusion. But my son basically told me this: Mom, many people died in order for you to be in this position. The worst that could happen is you lose your position. A small price to pay compared to the people who have literally lost their lives while going about their daily routine, just like George Floyd. So I'm going to be sharing I'm just going to be opening up with you. I'm a Black female, female executive. I've been in corporate America for a few decades. I'm a wife to a Black man, a mother to Black kids, including one son, and a grandmother to a Black 3-year-old boy. I call him my love. I have a bachelor, master's, and a doctorate in the field of accountancy and business. I did not watch the video about the murder of George Floyd. When my husband played it on his phone, I walked out of the room. But before I could get out, I could hear George Floyd, a 46-year-old man, crying out, "Mama, Mama." It broke my heart. Black mothers, wives, and sisters are full of fear and trepidation every single day because they don't know if it's their turn to bury their son, their husband, or their brother. Black males, they live in fear. In fact, they fear that today might just be their last, just like George Floyd or Ahmaud Arbery or Trayvon Martin. Even though in our house, we've lived here in Los Angeles for almost 30 years, a police officer pulled over in front of our house one day, got out and approached my husband, who was in his front yard wetting the grass. The officer asked him, "How did you get the money to buy this house?" My husband responded politely, "We used our savings and the loan from our 401k. The officer looked at him in disgust and walked away. My husband was grateful that his life was spared. Many Blacks can identify with stories like this every day, every minute. Many will say, the only time I feel safe is when I go back home in the night and when I wake up in the morning. That's not even safe anymore. You've heard so many stories. Police officer knocking on your doors and shooting, thinking you're somebody else. It's worse than what you're hearing. I mean, for those of you that are loving pet owners, can you imagine your pets being killed like any of the Black men, knelt over their necks till they took their last breath, shot from the back, shot face down? How many can I name? Age was never a barrier. 12 years old, 46, 70, no difference. My daughter brought my love to see us on Saturday following the tragedy. She was in tears because she was afraid for his future. Blacks in America deal with these problems every day, compounded with the subtle ones in workplaces. I don't need a researcher to tell me that most Black professionals are more qualified in the organizations they work in, but they can't get the job. You can count on one hand the number of Blacks heading organizations or even in the C-suites. Even if Blacks applied, they might get eliminated because of their names or their address, their zip code. Even if they make it to the finish line and get the job, advancement becomes a challenge. When the news about the murder of George Floyd broke, the first reaction of any mother was what I put on: a mother hen, no time to be angry, just protectiveness. This was the reaction of a typical Black mother from hundreds of years ago during the time of slavery. Don't think about the pain, just stop the bleeding. After a while, I switched to my inner strength. I went on my knees and looked up to the hill from whence cometh my help. The pain of the Black race is not about preferential treatment. Neither is it about the politics of the Democrats, Republicans, or everything in between or around them. They are simply two things: inequality and injustice. That was the reason for what you saw on your TV screens over the weeks. As the days progressed with the various protests, and I saw the myriads of people fighting this battle, I had hope. I concluded that this is different. This was not Black people fighting their plight alone. I saw every shades of color, status, and race fighting the battle for equality and justice. When there is casting down, there is lifting up. Inequality and injustice must go down, while equality and justice must go up. I see hope being solidified, and I know that something good will come out of this. I want to thank everyone hearing my voice today, because whether you went out or not, you were fully represented. So on behalf of my race, I thank you. I know many were impacted in various ways and for different reasons. While I cannot address the different levels of pain and losses, I want to say this. Let's make the pain of today the sacrifice for a better America tomorrow. That becomes your contribution to the new and brighter future of all humanity. And I thank you in advance for your sacrifice and contribution. The change we need is not going to start from the top. It's going to start from one person at a time. And we can start today. America is the leader of the free world and the world, period. The business of dominating the Black race is no longer sustainable. This is worse than human trafficking, which we hate, and child labor, which is detestable. Blacks are not prisoners of war, yet they are treated poorly. Imagine a Black boy caught with marijuana. He gets sent to jail or placed in the system. A white boy caught with heroin is taken to a recovery center for treatment. That is inequality. This business, the one America is engaged in for centuries, the business of inequality and injustice, is about to go bankrupt. If America can get this right, the world will follow. If America does not get it right, another nation will, because the time is here for the deliverance of the Black race, and nothing will stop it. The change must start from us, one at a time. And it's not enough to say, I don't see color. Of course, we all see colors, unless one is literally colorblind. Many people and organizations believe in this required change for our posterity, but they don't know where to start from. I have some thoughts. First, to my fellow Black brothers and sisters, be encouraged because hope is here. The battle is no longer yours. If it were to be, you would have been all alone on the streets of a few states in America. Rather, the battle is global. It's more than viral. From America to the United Kingdom to Australia, Belgium, France, Mexico, Hong Kong, and many countries of the world. Domination was in the past. Deliverance is here. Don't be afraid. Don't throw in the towel. It may look impossible because you've been there before. But right now, I want you to know that nothing is impossible. Certainly not. If you know the history of the Israelites, they were once slaves for 400 years. But one day, their deliverer came. Not only did their captors release them, but they blessed them with an abundance of gold and silver. This matter, the one of Black race, is backed by a supernatural force. So to my Black brothers and sisters, hold your peace. To all our friends, let me give you a few things you can do to help us. First, I want to introduce a concept called what if. I would like you to use it whenever any stereotypical thought crosses your mind. Just say, what if he's not a criminal? What if he's not going to rob me? What if she's smart? What if she's intelligent? What if he can do a great job? We can start with what if right now, right here. Secondly, Let's begin to teach the young ones about the history of Black people and others that looks different from us. You can teach them from home, and hopefully one day we can include it in the educational curriculum as a requirement. The third thing we can do, and I want to acknowledge one of my managers at my workplace, she suggested that everyone should share what they are doing about the subject. It could be what you are drawing, reading, seeing, listening to, donating to, volunteering, to educate yourself or to seek understanding about the subject. We know knowledge is power. You can do this as well. So about corporations and organizations, companies in general, what can you do? I have a few things as well. Implement a zero tolerance policy for discrimination, racism, and harassment. Secondly, commit to diversity and inclusion by developing and mandating personnel training in anti-racism and racial equity. Thirdly, commit to pay and opportunity equities. I'll stop there on 3. Executing those 3 will go a long way. It's important to note that corporations that implement such policies stands a better chance in the new America, even in the new world. Can you imagine the purchasing power of all those people you saw on the streets of your countries, your states, your cities in the world, with their spouses and children and parents, their friends and communities? They are becoming the majority. Businesses rely on numbers. And as a business expert, trust me, implementing and enforcing such policies will be a win-win for your organization and the world. Some of these ideas will cost you nothing to implement. You already have a training team. They just need to assign this as a priority and ensure all employees are on board. I have some thoughts for Washington, even the world leaders, but I assume this is not the right forum for that. But in general, every system is built by people, including Washington, our state legislators, various city councils, and of course businesses, be it small, medium, or large. They are all people backed. So there is power in starting from each person at a time. There is solution even from infancy. Educate them, teach them. Youth and adults, apply the what if and continue to widen your understanding about the subject. While it will take some time for the big guys in Washington and the various state capitals and cities to implement the big, massive changes we are hoping for, we can start from our own small circle of influences, our homes, our communities, our workplaces, and taking advantage of any teachable moments we encounter. We may be able to transform a lot of people. We may not be able to transform all immediately, 8 billion people on the planet, but we can start with one. That is me, you, our family, and most definitely in our workplaces. Trust me, this is going to be good for everybody and all humanity. We will all be better people. This is a bold and courageous move for all of us, both Black and white. I know many Blacks may listen to dialogues like this. While they are in full agreement, they will be so afraid to acknowledge their agreement, to acknowledge that they believe in it, to acknowledge that they subscribe to this. I was just like that until a week ago. If you're ever going to be able to do it, this is the time. For whites, there is also fear, not necessarily about standing for Blacks and being anti-racist, but the question may be, what's in it for me? What happens to me then? If there's a white privilege, which I probably have enjoyed, I don't know, but let's say there is one. Does it mean I will lose that privilege if I support anti-racism? Look, I have good news for you. First, you are way ahead of the game. Secondly, being able to lead when the playing field is leveled should give you more confidence in your ability and competence. And thirdly, the status quo is not sustainable. The human race is becoming more blended than before. You need to think about your mixed race children, husband, wife, family, and friends. We will all gain from this change, so don't be afraid. I know this is a difficult subject within you as an individual, in your family, and even in your social setting, whether it's your church or other similar settings. It must be addressed. The dilemma of the Black race is about to be over. Be part of the solution. Put your name on the wall, and your legacy will remain forever. If the issue of Black race is resolved, all other marginalized groups can be rest assured that this will be resolved automatically. I'm just going to stop there because there's just so much to say. But I want to thank you, Vicky, Vips, and everyone at ThinkShift for the opportunity to speak on this subject. Thank you all for listening. I hope it has been a blessing to you as well. God bless ThinkShift. God bless United Kingdom, Australia, and may the Lord bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Ah, Francesca. It was just as moving the second time you said it as it was the first. You are such a gem. I feel every word that you say. Thank you for sharing your gift with us.
Thanks, Vicky.
Amazing.
And for change to happen, we have to feel moved. And every time you speak, you move me deeply. And I feel it in my bones. And my wish, we normally have over 500 people download our recordings. We're going to make a big push to get it out there further, because how you move us is something that everybody needs to feel. Because when we're moved, that's when we feel like we can do something. So thank you.
Welcome. Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, so I'm going to open it up for questions. We've got lots of wonderful guests and friends on the call. There's so many areas we can dive into, and I'm very curious if anyone has any questions.
I made this is my list of questions.
Vips, we only have 25 minutes. We need others to speak to.
I'll just pick one. Firstly, thank you, Francesca. That was extraordinary. Everyone on this call will tell you it's rare to find me lost for words, and that's kind of how I feel right now. So thank you. And what you said was extremely moving and accurate as far as I'm concerned. But what I loved about everything that you said was, despite all of the hardships that you expressed, both personally and for Black people in general, I double asterisked here. 2 words. You made a comment that be encouraged, or what gives you encouragement. I just wonder if you could talk a little bit more about that, because I think it's hard to feel encouraged right now, and so when faced with especially that kind of talk that you have, and you still manage to keep a spirit that is encouraged, I'm really curious if what's your secret?
That's a great question, Vips. When you feel encouraged, it doesn't mean that there's no pain. It doesn't mean there's no anguish, as Blacks are experiencing every day. But there are a couple of things that brings hope and encouragement. The first thing I will say is your faith. The faith that, first, within yourself, you have no power of your own. But when I say there's a supernatural force that is moving this, even for people without faith, you will know that this is beyond going viral. It's not about sending texts or passing this. I've been trying to research how many countries did not protest for Black Lives Matter. I mean, from the smallest, remotest area on this planet, they protested for Black Lives Matter. Never happened before. Never happened before. 92, Rodney King, not the same. 65, 64, civil rights, not the same. This is different. Think about that guy that was murdered. He was just a black guy, a security guard, suffering, not able to make ends meet, obviously. But think about his funeral. Think about his burial. That funeral was more well attended, more than that of presidents of nations. That tells me something. Something is in the works. We may not know it, we may not see it, but I have absolute confidence that something is in the works. Now, to some, it may look impossible, and I literally mean that. You know, this time last year, who would have believed that the whole world could come down to a standstill?
So true.
COVID-19 brought the world to a standstill. So in my mind, this is not an impossible task. That's why I say, be encouraged. Everything is lined up to our favor. I hope I've answered the question, Vips.
It was wonderful to hear you speak on that. I actually have to add to that. You know, Vicky and I just finished recording the next podcast, and I mentioned a comment that I actually feel. I mean, I hate what happened and everything about it, but it's extremely encouraging for me to see a younger population introducing political narrative back into everyday life. You know, we were talking about how in everyday life, if you think about, particularly in companies, in businesses in particular, and organizations, you're basically told not to talk about anything that matters, right? Whether it's racism, sexism, abortion, guns, and take your pick. The American kryptonite is what I call it, right? Whatever they are, okay? You're not allowed to talk of them because of legal risk, and suddenly now you have to. There's no choice. So now you've got everybody having to engage in political discourse, and you can't sit on the fences anymore. To me, that's extremely encouraging, and that it's disproportionately the younger group of people, because I mean, at the end of the day, younger people will change the world. It won't be the old farts like me. So, you know, when I think of that, I get very encouraged by that. So to hear you express that was wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to say that Michelle makes me so happy, Michelle Williams. I love seeing you with your daughter. I think it's your daughter. It's just so delightful to have her here with us as well.
Thank you. I hope it's not a distraction.
Not at all. It's just gorgeous. And your smile is so gorgeous. And
Thank you.
It's so delightful to have you join us as well.
Thank you for having me.
And Amy, you posted a question. Do you want to ask Francesca your question?
Sure. And I should also say that, Francesca, you and Michelle share something in common. Michelle's background is in the area of finance. And so I was really excited to have you join, to hear what you have to say, but also because I feel like you and Michelle have a real common cause above and beyond the topic that we're talking about today. So here's my question. You talked about one of your three things being committing to diversity and inclusion in a real meaningful way within organizations. And I'm curious to know if there are some real specific areas of focus, some topics, some issues that sit underneath the bigger issue of anti-racism. What are the things that we should be thinking about that maybe we're not?
Oh, thank you so much for that question, and I hope I'll be able to connect with you, Michelle. I'm really looking forward to it. Now, so in general, when I say you know what organizations need to do, diversity, inclusion, we can look at it from very different lenses. Definitely, there's the racism aspect, and the first thing is being able to talk about it openly. You know, many organizations, they've had trainings in the past, you know, harassment and things like that. But when it comes to the issue of anti-racism, It's almost a taboo. You can't say black. I want everybody to feel comfortable saying black. Don't even say African American. Just say black, black people. Feel comfortable saying it because that's what it is. That's the number one thing. Secondly, companies should feel comfortable doing the same. We're going to have training on how to be able to relate together. White, blacks, brown, whatever you want to call it. Let's call it exactly what it is. No need to sugarcoat it or make a statement that sounds politically correct. It's black, it's white, it's brown. Okay, let's call it exactly what it is. Now, below that, because you have the black issue, but below that, there are so many other issues. You have the gender issues, you have sexism, you have women that are able to do so much more in organizations, but because they are women, too bad, they can't get there. We need to address that. We need to include that. You have Asians. I was in one of the senior leadership meetings about a week and a half ago when we were talking about, me having to talk on this subject. And one of the leaders broke down because of COVID-19, how the Asians, Chinese, Japanese were stereotyped that they were the cause of COVID-19. He was almost in tears. Those kind of issues need to be dealt with openly and just be addressed without feeling like, we need to sugarcoat it. We need to address it differently. We don't need to make it a political subject. It's just a human subject. And as I said, in organizations, we are all human beings that is backing this organization. I don't care. The largest company in the world is backed by people. People make the decision for those organizations. So we should feel comfortable talking about things that affect people. So I think those are the first ways companies can begin to dig into this subject.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for saying that. I got a follow on, not so much to Amy's question, but to how you answered my previous one. And I'm really curious about this because I think this is one of those things that I worry about a lot. You used a phrase, and I've heard it 3 times this week. This idea of don't throw in the towel. Yeah, and it's really, really interesting. I've heard it in different contexts. And the American media in particular is not wonderful about sustaining something over time. Things come, then they go. They come, then they go. And how do we encourage people not to throw in the towel when one, oh my God, this is so big, it's so much bigger than me, I don't know where to start. I think you addressed that a little bit with start with yourself and start with your team and your family. Excellent. But how would you advise that the people we talk to don't throw in the towel because something else comes up that blows up Twitter? Most likely irrational tweet from someone.
I heard you. Even the ones you did not say, Babes, I heard it. The battle is not for the weak. It's a battle. When you give up, then there is no longer hope. Okay? You cannot give up. Yes, you're going to fall. 7 times somebody falls, 7 times you must rise up. You must not give up. Throwing in the towel is basically falling down and staying down. You must not. We must not. You know what? If it means fighting to the last breath, then do it. If you throw in the towel, you might die. If you don't throw in the towel, you might still die. You might as well not throw in the towel. And if you die, then it's okay because you die fighting. You die pushing. You die moving forward. So that's why I'm saying don't throw in the towel. I don't have physical strength, I wish I do, to move the hand of the needle. I don't have much money to move the hand of the needle. But dialogues like this is my way of not throwing in the towel.
Yeah.
As I said, literally 1 week ago from today, I cannot imagine myself talking about the issue of Blacks, even me as a Black person, talking about the issue of Black in a professional setting, in a social setting, even in a social setting that is safe. I don't talk about it. I'm very conservative. I don't talk about it. My husband calls me Miss Conservative. I don't. But look at me. This is my way of not throwing in the towel. As long as I have breath, and as long as the issue remains, I will talk. And that's what I mean by not throwing in the towel.
Yeah.
And
Wonderful.
I'm so glad you are. It would have been such a pity for you to have given us the corporate line last week, and I wouldn't have invited you today, and we would have missed out on all this powerful emotion that you shared with us that has touched me deeply and has made me think about the what ifs in a completely different way. I feel like I have a whole new tool set thanks to you, and you have to keep speaking. You have to keep speaking. It's so powerful.
It's also, I tell you what's really interesting for me as we're waiting for these calls to questions to come in. That, Jennifer last week, I've known Jennifer for, 3, 4, 5 years. And I have never experienced a strength of conviction and authenticity like I experienced last week when she spoke. Today, you've done exactly. This feels like the real you talking. And I would imagine that must be quite liberating, although it might have been frightening a week ago. I'm curious. I like your reaction on that. Do you feel liberated, or do you feel like it's still a risky thing to do?
Vibes, you know the answer. You guys are the one that you're teaching all this, be fabulous, do this, go outside of your shell. You know.
Yeah, but eating your own dog food is hard. Eating your own dog food is really hard.
You know this. You know the response. Somebody asked me after my discussion at work last week. They said, how did it feel? I said it felt like a big weight lifted off my shoulder, a big load. It's not a load for me personally. It's not a load for my family. It's not even a load for my friends alone. It's like a load for a whole generation of people.
Yeah.
Lifted off my shoulder. And talking about relief, it gets better by the minute. The pain does not go away, but the confidence that there is solution and I can be part of that solution, it comes by the minute. And I'm sure, Vicky, you will know that last week versus this week, there's a difference to it because I feel, to Vip's point, more liberated to talk about it. And that's the truth of the matter. It's liberating.
Well, it touched me deeply last week, and it's touched me deeply this week. And this week you had more examples and more stories, which brought it to life even more. And I'm so grateful. It's so powerful. So I can't wait to see you do it the third time. It's just going to get stronger and more liberating. So, Francesca, I have a question for you on the 3 things you said organizations could do, committing to, D&I, diversity inclusion training, and zero tolerance policy for discrimination and harassment, and committing to pay and opportunity equities. So that's, Vips and I talked about during this podcast we just recorded, the different levels of thinking. So you can do things very tactically and very operationally. So, you could put in basic tactics around what that looks like. You can roll out some training, make everyone go through it. Operationally, make sure they've all done it. But it doesn't fundamentally move up the thinking levels in terms of systemic. Like, have we changed the systemic view on racism, on having dialogues between Blacks and whites and browns? And even the way you describe that, it's so liberating having these discussions and saying these words for the first time, because as you say, nobody knows. Can I say white? Can I say Black? Can I say brown? Who can say it? Who can't say it? And it's just the permission to say that to me is so liberating, because you're right, it is what it is. It's the color of our skin. It's not good or bad, it just is. And I'm curious about your views. What can we do beyond the tactics? Because as you know, ThinkShift, we're always trying to do the systemic, that it's longer, it's beyond just, hey, do some tactics and then nothing actually changes. Everyone can check the boxes, but it's still the same thing. We've done some training. We've got some metrics that say we're hiring right. We've got some metrics to say that some of the pay is a bit better, but fundamentally, it hasn't changed the mindset and how we treat each other day to day. So I'm curious about your views on systemically how we can make it more ingrained in the organization. Not that the tactics and operations are not good, they are, but it needs more than that.
Absolutely, Vicky. I'm glad to hear your position as well in terms of just being free to say words that you've never been able to say before, just being able to utter those words and it coming out of your mouth, and you look around and you're wondering, are people looking at me differently for saying these words? No, it's just normal. So that's really good to hear. So in terms of the tactical moves and being able to embrace that into our culture and our way of life. First, I want to challenge you, Vicky, Vips, ThinkShift, and organizations like yours. Vicky, during one of our sessions last week, I was talking to you about my group. And was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Everything has blended now. We were talking about what we need to do. I want to shift them from one way of working to another way of working. So the previous way was very reactionary. I want to move them to a proactive way of working, predictable type of work. And you gave me a suggestion. You said we can have a session called Emotional Reset.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I did.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to challenge you that you can use that emotional reset kind of tool to get us to change our systemic way of working. Not just because what I want to do is pretty operational. I want to, change one way of working to the other. But you told me that it's not that easy to do. There's a way to do it. There's a system that you can use that can make it a built-in process that will work naturally for everybody. And you told me emotional reset. I want to start from something like that because, look, nobody has ever done this before.
Yeah.
We don't have a playbook to work with. We're going to need everybody to start thinking beyond their normal status quo of operating. ThinkShift needs to go beyond the norms, your normal operation, executive coaching, whatever it is. You have to take it a step above that because this is massive. This is global. This is a pandemic. It's huge. And we don't know what to do. It's like COVID-19. We don't have any solution. I don't have a playbook, but we're trying to work this out. So, ThinkShift, put your thinking cap on. I will put mine on. And then we're going to keep pounding it. And regardless of what we do, if you can feel comfortable dropping a piece of this into it, whether the training is about interpersonal styles, communication style, feel free to use Black people, white people, drop it in. Then it becomes the norm. It becomes something we're comfortable talking about. It becomes our everyday behavior. It will be like we're breathing. I mean, who looks around to determine, should I breathe, should I not? You just do it. But it takes effort. It takes a conscious effort. It takes planning. And especially for something that we've never been exposed to. We don't know how to do it. Even 500, 1,000 years ago, they never did things like this. So there's no playbook. So everybody, all hands need to be on deck to make this work. So that's what I want to say. I want to encourage everybody. Bring out your thinking cap and let's begin to think about what we can do individually and corporately. And we can effect change. Look, as I said, Washington, they take a while, but it's people that are there. Our president is a human being. The vice president is a human being. So if I know somebody who listened to this podcast who knows somebody that can send this to somebody, and it will get to another person. And if that person has a soul, that person has a heart that is pumping, I'm sure the change can start from there, and it can become the new way of life, the new way of living. Surely it started from somewhere to get us here. They started 500 years ago. They didn't have a playbook then, but they developed a playbook as they went along, and they continue to develop it. Even when they say they abolished slavery, there was an introduction of it into it in a way that will make sure it's still there. There was no playbook. Everybody, all hands were on deck to make it work. Well, let's do this now. I think everybody has a role to play in this. Can we do that, Vicky? Do you think we can?
Yeah, Francesca, I think dropping it into everyday conversation is going to be powerful, and I'm committing to do that. There's no question about it. You've got me fired up. And Vips and I have been talking about, we have the concept of the fabulous few, the ones that are really going to reinvent the world. And you're clearly one of them. We are knighting you. Be fabulous. You know, it's making
You got knighted.
Thank you.
It's making me think. So Vips and I have been talking about creating a group of 7 fabulous leaders who are going to do something to change the world. It feels like this is a topic. You're a participant and a leader in this, and
Thank you.
Jen might be another one, and Michelle might be another one, and we create a group, and we put our thinking caps on, and we take these emotional resets. And for those of you that don't know what it is, it's essentially, once you've been working in one way, it's very difficult to be able to shift a group into a different way of thinking without necessarily almost emotionally resigning from a job and then emotionally rehiring yourself back in, signaling to yourself through something. You know, you might get a new haircut, or you might get a new jacket or a bank account for your money, whatever it might be, that you've left all the baggage behind and you're going to operate in a brand new way with the knowledge of where the organization is right now. And then the group holds each other accountable to that. So we're going to have to do something like that, but I'm thinking even on a higher flame that we'll have to come up with as a group. So yes, we're committing to that.
And for Jen, I can tell you that we've, as a group, we've probably not thought about much else. But well, certainly for the last few weeks. And, you know, there are other mechanisms we have that, you know, if you're up for it, I'd love to have a longer conversation with you, because the hard part of, like, where I always go to is the only way we'll really make a lasting change. So all the operational, all great stuff, right? All has to happen, but lots of people can do that, and lots of people will do that. What's harder to do is how do you, even if it's in small groups or in larger groups, but in a way that propagates, work on the belief level. Like, what are the beliefs that I have that have made me that have created microaggressions on my behaviors through my life? So I don't even know about, because they were programming from how I was brought up, for example. And we do this with cultural, where companies and teams have to work internationally. So I got 10 people in India, 5 people in Asia, whatever, right? And we do it through that lens as a way of at some level, your beliefs are a function of the environment exposure all through your life. And what we do is we facilitate environments where everyone shares the things that were big moments for them. So, when you're in America, everyone has 9/11, right? 9/11 was a big thing, right? If you do it in Germany, 9/11 doesn't turn up, right? They got their own issue, right? And similarly, but when you do that, they tend to provide an insight into why we believe certain things about certain groups of people, whether it be Black people, whether it be Jewish people, whether it be Indian people, whatever, right? Take white people, the middle-aged white man, right? I mean, pick any one of them. And until to me, the dialogue that you're talking about, if we can somehow translate the power of purpose that you have in your dialogue to wanting people to go through that self journey of why am I thinking that way, then we stand the chance, because then the things they will do will propagate. Otherwise, it's too easy which is a good thing to do as well, but it's very easy for things to become check the box. And that is good, but it's a slower velocity progress. And if we can find, if we can accelerate that. So the emotional it's a good call out because we do have tools. I don't know who to work with to proof of concept them. So that's maybe something we can talk about if you're interested.
Absolutely. You can count on me 100%, Vips. And, we can all contribute to this, every single one, in our different ways. ThinkShift can, I can, every company we work in can. You have access to some organizations, you can do that. You're taking a big risk because, there may be some organizations that are still not there yet. But you're taking a risk by doing this, just like I took a risk being able to talk about this. But one thing remains, beyond what organizations like the system wants to do, individuals, they have roles to play. That's why I said, it's not going to be transformed just like that. To build generations and generations that will benefit from what we're doing today is going to mean we consciously begin to even train the younger ones.
Yes, right.
The infants, begin to train them, what they watch. Talk to them about real stuff like this. Oh, that's a Black girl. She's pretty. That's a white girl. Oh my gosh, I like her hair. That's normal, but that's not a normal conversation. Up until 2-3 weeks ago, it's not a normal conversation, even among Black people. So the point is this: everybody can do their part. I think we can move it. We can continue to move the hand of the needle. And you may not see it fully grown and fully materialized to the extent you want it to be in your lifetime.
Absolutely.
Because, hey, this thing was 500 years ago.
Yes,
okay?
totally.
The forefathers that started this whole business, they're not seeing what we're doing now. Look at the impact. I mean, so the bottom line is what we're doing today, it may not become the perfect, the scenario, the ideal scenario where we want it to be. But as long as we keep moving, consciously moving in that direction, 100 years from now, 200 years, 500, it's going to be a different world. Let me tell you something. I was looking through some statistics yesterday. And do you know that by the year 2050, 1 in 4 persons standing is going to be a Black person? By the year 2050, 25% of the world population will be Black. That's scary. We have to solve it. If we don't solve it, the numbers is going to drive everybody crazy. It's going to drive the whole world crazy because there is power in numbers. It goes beyond solving it for the US. I'm looking beyond the United States. Look at Africa. They have over 1 billion people over there right now, and they are popping babies like crazy. If population is going down in many parts of the world, it's going up over there. So I know it. So over there, there are big numbers there. The opportunities there. If America gets it right, if the Western world gets it right, hey, the world will be a better place. Nobody needs to be afraid. If we can make Black people feel comfortable now, 2050, we don't need to worry about the numbers. It's going to be win-win for everybody.
That's cool. That's really good.
My gosh, I wish we had hours and hours with Francesca.
We've got one question from Phyllis we should probably do because we're coming up to the end of our time. Phyllis, are you there? I don't know if you can come off mute or do you want to read it out?
Yeah, sure. I'm here. Hi. Francesca, you are so moving and inspiration. I just want to say thank you. Like, really, I'm very passionate about this topic, and like, you've almost brought me to like tears of passion for your path. Like, it's really powerful. So my question really is, I think it's very easy for those of us, I mean, for everybody who's getting involved and becoming more aware, to be like, oh, I checked the box. I created my poster and I went to March, or I did a program at my company. So like, I've done my part, right? Like, how do we how do we know that we're not just checking the box? Like, how do we move past that and keep ourselves really true to the intent and not just let ourselves off the hook and say, oh, I did my part, right? Because to your point, this is a long-term, this is the long game, right? But how do we not let ourselves off the hook?
We have to keep talking about it. It must be set up as a way that we can show accountability. In the workplace, you must live it, you must show it, you must prove it. It's not just by checking the box that, oh yeah, you have 10% of your workers are Black. No, I want to see you living it, showing it, displaying it, talking about it openly. Don't be afraid to talk about it in your work setting. Don't be afraid to openly discuss it. Don't be afraid in your social setting, among your friends. Vicky, your friends, all of you, whatever race it is, your friends, everybody should be able to just talk about it. And then it just becomes part and parcel of us. As long as we keep the conversation going, as long as we don't let our guards down and say, oh, okay, so they buried George Floyd, it's over now, we can all go back. As long as we keep the dialogue going, personally, professionally, emotionally, we're keeping ourselves engaged, I think we can make it work. That's what they did then. We must do the same. As I said, there's really no playbook. We're going to need to develop that playbook, how we want it to be. And that means, Francesca, you're not going to shut up. You have to keep going. You started this. Vicky, Michelle, you can't keep quiet. You need to keep talking about it. Talk to your clients about it. Keep bringing it up. Keep asking questions. How are we doing? Bring some thoughts in. Introduce new concepts that will keep the emotional aspect of this system going, because it's the emotional aspect. If you can reach the emotion, the feeling part, the deep part, it's not physical. The heart, if you can reach it, I think the rest is history. It's done.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know we have to end. I don't want to end. There's nothing in my body that wants to end right now. Francesca, you have moved us all in our bodies, and many of us are disassociated from our bodies and don't know what our bodies feel. So well done, you.
Thank you.
And
thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, and this will stay with us for a very long time. And I know I'm going to keep coming back to what if, and let me keep the conversation going. And I'm so, so grateful you took the time to spend the hour with us. And I know our community is going to enjoy downloading and listening to this, and we're going to get you out there as best as we can.
Thank you.
And I'm committing on behalf of ThinkShift that I will find a way to engage you in my thoughts in terms of what I'm thinking through, to see if you think that would work. And more secondly, though, at an organizational level, this idea of going, the biggest thing what I call sort of ADD. I don't mean the actual real ADD. I just mean we tend to want things done now, and I think ADD is probably our biggest danger in the corporate world. People will, something else will become important, and I think the idea of maintaining that marathon commitment against ADD, if you like, is probably something that we can. Well, it's definitely something we can weave into what we're doing, and so that was wonderful. And I look forward to many more conversations with you, Francesca. You are inspirational at an extreme level, and I feel very happy that you feel your weight lifted off your shoulders on behalf of all Black people everywhere, and we're able to share that with us. And Jennifer's term last week, consider us allies. We're all trying to figure out what looking like allies means right now, but we're gonna find a way to document what it means to be an ally, and maybe you can help us get that code right.
I will be willing to do that. Thank you so much, Vips, Vicky.
Thank you,
everybody. Thank you, ThinkShift. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you so much.